Alrighty then. Alright, hopefully everyone can hear everyone. Welcome to episode 126, 27, 127, starting off a little shaky, of Trek Live. In this week's episode, we're going to be doing an episode draft. Bill, two things. How you doing this morning? And explain a little bit about the topic.
Doing well. Happy Mother's Day if you're watching on Sunday, watching us live or later today. Doing well. Excited to do this. I think this is an interesting spin on the topic that we did a couple weeks ago where we drafted a crew inspired by the NFL draft and Trek Legacy, another really good Star Trek podcast that's out there. Instead of doing a crew today, we're going to take a season of Star Trek and fantasy draft episodes. We're going to flip back and forth. We're going to do 10 rounds. So we're each going to have 10 episodes at the end of it from season 3 of TNG. I think it's an interesting way to look at which episodes kind of speak to us and which ones maybe don't as much when we each get an opportunity to pick the ones that grab us. Rob says my sound's a little low. I don't know if that's me or maybe something else. But yeah, it's a different spin on the pick your favorite episodes from a season idea, and this fantasy draft idea is out there now, courtesy of Trek Legacy, and I think this is a little bit of a different way to embrace that idea and do something a little different with it. So really excited to do it. The other cool thing about this topic is I think there are obviously 30 some seasons of Star Trek at this point, so there's any number of ways you can do this. We could have more people involved and do bigger versions of it, where it gets a little more competitive and a little bit tougher to get the episodes you really want if there are, say, 3 or 4 of us doing this. So I think this is going to be a topic that we'll see come back in the months and probably years ahead.
Yeah, it should be a really fun topic today, but also in the future. I'm looking forward to other seasons. I've been thinking about other seasons that I would like to maybe tackle and do this type of topic with. So it should be fun.
For sure, and different kinds of seasons I think would present different kinds of challenges.
Right,
I think
exactly.
This is a really good season where there's a lot of episodes to choose from. Yet the season that you just finished, TOS season 3, for example, or TNG season 1, maybe a little bit shakier in terms of the number of really great episodes. I think that's a whole different thing that I'd be excited to do. Pick a season that maybe is on the other end of the spectrum as well, and see which of the episodes, once you get through the classics in that season, which of the middle ground or maybe weaker episodes, grab whoever's in the draft, whoever's doing it. I think that'll be an interesting different approach that I'd be excited to try too.
How can people how do we pick the seasons generally?
Well, this season was chosen via a Twitter poll. You and I each picked 2 to include in a poll. And that was our 4 that we put out there, and we were just going to go with whatever one. It was TNG season 3 and Voyager season 5 that were kind of neck and neck. They were pretty close. It was close. We had a whole over 100 votes. I don't remember the exact number, but it was well over 100, I think. 160 maybe, something like that. We also had Enterprise season 2 and what else? TOS season 1 maybe, or season 2, something like that. We had I think it's TOS season 1 or 2 as well. Yeah. But it was clearly between what we're doing today, TNG season 3 and Voyager season 5. So that might be an indicator of maybe what we do next. Rob says he wonders which season Dan picked. Won't be too difficult to figure that out. So yeah, I think it's probably a safe assumption that we'll probably take on Voyager season 5 pretty soon, given how tight that race was, and that there was a good deal of support behind that idea. But like I said, I'm very eager to try this again in the future with a maybe a season with a less good reputation and a season with less classics to offer, and get us into the more middle ground episodes quicker. So I think, another kind of season's probably coming in the near future too. So.
Yep. Before we jump into the topic today, I'd like to jump into our rewatch a little bit. As you guys know, I'm still in season 1 of Deep Space Nine. I think I've been bad and I've only watched one episode. I think it was Dax. If you guys remember, it's kind of like a courtroom drama a little bit. Maybe middle of the road for me. Nothing to write home about, really. So, but just know that I'm still trucking through Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, Dax is an interesting. It's obviously an attempt to like flesh out Dax's backstory and like further flesh out the Trill idea. I think that's the main mission of that episode. I think the mechanics of the courtroom drama aren't necessarily the most exciting things in the world. It's fairly, like many courtroom dramas in Star Trek, the big difficulty that episodes run into is clearly, the person who's accused isn't going to be, found guilty and taken away and be run off the show. So there's you have to have some degree of just, you have to go along for the ride to some extent, and the episode's got to do its job enough to kind of pull you along with it and make it interesting enough. And Dax, I think, is kind of like you said, maybe a little bit in the middle of the road territory as far as that goes. But there's some interesting Dax backstory, like I said, and I think it's one of those early episodes that, does some interesting things with establishing a character. But again, we kind of talked about it last week when we were talking about early Deep Space Nine in general, that Dax early on is a much more kind of stoic, much more, Vulcan-y, much more reserved character than what she ultimately becomes. I'd say maybe like halfway through season 2, season 3. And Dax is a strong example of that, like the earlier version of Dax, where she's very, she doesn't want to fight back. She's very quiet. Doesn't have a whole lot to say throughout this process. And I would think that one of the interesting things to think about for me is like if this kind of episode happened later in the show, I think the way the character would have been written, the way Terry Farrell would have played it would have been very different. She would have been, she's much more of a firecracker later in the show. I don't think she'd take it quite as quietly and as laying down as she kind of does here. And she's got her reasons for being quiet and not wanting to talk a lot about what's happening. But it's an interesting artifact of early Dax that I think is kind of only possible in the first season before they kind of figure the character out.
Yeah.
For me, I just watched. I'm like you. I watched one since last time we did this. I watched Tin Man, which I actually really like. It's like I said on Twitter. I think it's an interesting, nice kind of hybrid, sort of half action adventure, race against the clock kind of story, racing against the Romulans to get to this thing, this sort of MacGuffin. And there's a lot of cool action stuff, powering that part of the plot. And then you have this exploration of a pretty tragic character and this Betazoid guy with extremely sensitive, empathic abilities, and has a troubled past and really doesn't have anywhere to go or anything to do. Nobody likes him because of some controversial things he was involved in. I think he's a cool guest star character, which I think season 3 of TNG, as we're about to talk about, is kind of loaded with those. I think there are a lot of really good guest stars that come and go throughout the season, which is kind of ironic. Season 3 is kind of the point where Michael Piller comes in and kind of makes a point to redirect the show to be more of a character show that focuses on one of the 7 main characters on the ship, or the 8, I guess, at this point, with Wesley still there. But yet, even with that new focus and that new, like, we're not gonna be too much about guest stars and like Alien of the Week and Society of the Week, like maybe they were for the first couple of seasons. They still have like these extremely heavy hitting, very deep, very rich guest star characters that really put individual stamps on these episodes. So I think season 3 really found their the sweet spot for the show with really advancing the characters that we care about and that are at the center of the show, the main characters, but still offering, new wrinkles each week with, new characters coming and going.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I am.
Yes.
And to answer Rob's question, kind of as we maybe get started with the topic at hand, he says we only picked 10 episodes, and the answer to that is yes. So there are 26 episodes in season 3. So we're not going to go through and pick every episode. This isn't going to be whittling all the way down to the end of the season. There are going to be, at the end of this, 6 episodes that were left unchosen, which will, I think, be an interesting thing to look at the end. What are the episodes that didn't make either of our cuts that we left kind of undrafted off to the side? What does that say about those episodes? What do we think maybe is the strongest episode that didn't get picked? There are things that we can talk about at the end with the population of episodes that'll be left unchosen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we're going to do it this week. I think one of the other beauties of this topic is things like that are also variable. We could do this in all kinds of different ways. We could go all the way down to the end of the season and pick everything. We could we could shorten this and only go 5 or 8. I think if we added other people and had a draft of 3 or 4 individuals, that would have to force us to whittle down even further and have less episodes each. So this is going to look different each time. We can come back and do TNG season 3 again with other people involved as well and have a draft of 4, and it would be a whole different thing.
Yeah, there's parameters that we can change to kind of tweak how we kind of think about and make our picks. That being said, was there a certain way you went about maybe making picks, or are you just gonna, however the board falls, that's how you're gonna adapt, or what do you think?
I think with it being a draft, it's hard to prep too much. I have an idea of maybe the small handful at the very top, my favorites of the season that I would be most eager to get my hands on. But it's going to come down to how the board falls. I'm going to try to, like we always sort of talk about, and I talked about on Trek Ranks the other week, a couple weeks ago, and I think it just came out. I like the Swiss Army knife of Star Trek. We like the Swiss Army knife of Star Trek. So I like variety. I like episodes that do different things. So that might go into my decision making as we go a little bit. I might, break a tie with a couple of episodes if there are 2 or 3 that are kind of on the cusp of in the same territory. I might be inclined to maybe go to the one that is a little different than the ones I already have. But we'll see. It's hard to know until we see how it goes. I don't know what you honestly are gonna gravitate towards. I know some of the real heavy hitters that I think anybody would want.
Yeah.
But once you get through, I think the interesting thing is going to be once we get through maybe 2 or 3 rounds and 4 or 6 episodes are gone and we're into the more middle of the pack. What are we? What are you going to pick? I don't really know. I don't know which ones you're gonna lean heavily to. So I'm interested to see where we go with it. Do we want to do a virtual coin flip?
Yeah, I can do that.
Do you want to do it?
Let me. I'll bring the board up. Hopefully everything is working correctly. Bill, say something.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All
cool.
good? Testing?
Yeah.
Testing? All right,
yes.
Cool.
So all the audio is good. I just switched scenes. You can see the board. Hopefully all the episodes are on here and spelled correctly. Real quick, before I bring up as I bring up the coin flip, talking about my picks, I didn't really prep a lot for this either. Only just to kind of look at the episodes in the frame of my mind of kind of the stuck on a desert island pick, kind of. That's kind of where my pick is going to come from. So that's kind of the only whoops.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's going to be pretty universal. I think that's an easy way to look at it, and the right way to look at it. Like if you're drafting, you're going to want to. These are the things you're going to want to take with you to wherever you're going, or So makes total sense.
It should be up on the screen. I will, Bill. Will have you call it.
Okay, real quick to answer Rob's question. No, we cannot both pick the same episode.
No,
so
can't do it.
If I pick, say my first pick is Menage a Troy, if that's my choice, that's off the board. So Dan can't have that one. So that's what's going to cause this sort of back and forth. 20 episodes are going to be chosen over the course of this, but we're going to have each 2 different populations of 10. So again, if we do this again in the future with 3 or 4 people, instead of going 10 rounds, we might go like 6 or 4 or 5 or something like that, depending on how many we have and how many episodes are in the season. And it would cause the same sort of give and take kind of thing. So I'm going to call the coin toss to see who's going to go first, who gets to choose the first episode. And I'm going to call Tails. And Dan's going to use a random.
It is heads. Hey, 2 for 2. 2 for 2.
Go.
Yes. All right.
Daniel gets to choose. He gets his pick of the litter.
That's right. Bear with me, guys, as I do the producery things.
Sure, yeah, we're going to take our time a little bit.
Yeah.
And I might have to take my time to make my choices. I don't know if anybody's ever done a fantasy football draft or anything like that. Sometimes these decisions take time, you know? Got to be patient.
All right, with the first pick in the draft, I hope you guys can read that. It's kind of, there's some spatial stuff that's going to bug me, but let's just roll with it. Hopefully this will be, you guys can get the gist, but I pick Season 3, Episode 15, Yesterday's Enterprise.
So, obviously that is where I was going to go. That's no mystery, I don't think. I just watched that one a couple weeks ago, and I think that's probably my favorite episode of TNG right now as a whole. So I think you made a good choice, Dan.
Yep.
That's a clear choice there. I'll go with Best of Both Worlds Part 1. Was my first round pick. It is. I could easily. I think I could make a case that Best of Both Worlds. The thing that makes this challenging is it's one half of it, and I think it's the better half. I think most people would probably argue that Part 1's better than Part 2, but the reason I would have gone with Yesterday's Enterprise, and the reason I think you made the best choice, Dan, is that it's a single whole thing. It's got a beginning, middle, and it's for a standalone episode. It's as good as it gets. But I'm happy with Best of Both Worlds Part 1. It's thrilling. It's TNG at its best. So I'm content with what I ended up with.
Perfect.
So round 2. Now at this point, honestly, to be completely transparent with everybody, I figured those would be the first 2 picks. I think in any kind of world, I think they're probably the first 2 picks in most situations that I can imagine. But at this point, I had no idea what Dan's going to do. I figured he would do one of those 2 if he had the number 1 pick. But beyond them, I don't have a clue what he's gonna go with.
Alrighty then. So I'm gonna stay pretty close in episodes. I'm gonna stick with Season 3, Episode 16, The Offspring.
Okay.
This, I think just this.
Killing me, Dan.
This just run is so strong. I think Bill talked about the Swiss Army knife idea. The Offspring couldn't be any more different to Yesterday's Enterprise. That's just the beauty of Star Trek, in that it can be, the next episode can be something completely different. And this is a very emotional, maybe heavy hitter with Data. So I figure I had to draft The Offspring.
Yeah, I think to be honest, if our picks were flipped, if I had number 1, you had number 2, that day would have been the 2 I would have gone with. I think although maybe you would have picked The Offspring over the Best of Both Worlds if we were flipped. I don't know for your number 1, but Yesterday's Enterprise, Best of Both Worlds, Offspring, I think is pretty chalk at this point. I think they're the 3. And Rob said in the chat he would have gone with I lost it. I think he said Best of Both Worlds 1 and then Offspring 2. So
Gotcha.
We're everybody who's commenting at this point, we got Rob in the chat involved. is pretty much on the same path right now, which is interesting. For me, my second round choice. I'll go with the Defector. Political intrigue, Romulans, episode 10. Great guest star. That's one of those that I was just saying with Tin Man, really liking the guest performance, kind of driving the drama. I love James Sloyan as Tomalak. No, not Tomalak. Jarak.
Yeah,
Jarak.
Sorry.
Admiral Jarak. I love the intrigue of it. I love the twisty-turny of it. It's one of those episodes that if you haven't seen it many times, and maybe it's been a long time since you've seen it, and you don't have it quite like memorized, it can almost fool you into feeling like it could go either way with who he is and what his mission is and what his intentions are and what's all happening. It's got a great ending. So there were a couple there that I could have gone with, but I'm pretty comfortable going with the Defector in round 2.
Yeah, that's a strong pick.
Round 3. Rob agreed he would have gone with he would have gone with Yesterday's Enterprise 3. So
yes.
it's a little tougher at this point. Like once you get through like the extreme heavy hitters, like the real classics of the bunch.
Yep.
There's less separation, I think, between some of these episodes, so it's harder to.
Yeah, it's tough because I don't know. There's like a group of 3 that I want, but I know that I can't have all 3. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like I just have to go for it. I'm gonna go with episode 6, Booby Trap.
Booby Trap, nice.
I like. I think that's maybe an underrated episode, at least for me. I think there's some like a fun kind of sci-fi topic here. There's probably a bunch of things like this out in space, so it kind of feels a little bit more lived in. Things like this.
Sure.
There's definitely like old space trash, I guess, floating around ships. Yeah, and it's a little bit different than kind of my other picks that I wanted to kind of step away from. So, big Booby Trap.
Booby Trap's great. It's I love the end of it. I love Picard piloting the ship out of danger.
Yeah.
With nothing but his instincts. I think that's a badass Picard heroic moment for sure. It's got some good engineering porn kind of stuff in it.
Which I think is right up my alley a little bit. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It makes perfect sense that it's a high choice for you.
Yeah.
So for me, round 3, Rob says he wants to do this with friends. Maybe. Be patient. It's coming. It's coming.
Spoiler a little bit. Teaser. Teaser.
I'll go with Who Watches the Watchers for my round 3 choice.
Good pick. That was probably in my 3.
It was in your 3 that you were torn.
Yeah.
I think I love the location photography. I love the tough questions it asks, and I think it's gutsy. I think it's got a great score. It's got some great production design stuff, set design, production design, costume design, all that stuff. All the technical aspects of the show are kind of operating at their best there, I think. And it's true to form Star Trek with.
I think it feels like a really big episode. It feels really polished. It's got some great production stuff, like you said, but it is. I'm not as hot on it just because of the. I'm not. I don't know. I don't like people breaking the Prime Directive, but
Yeah, you do struggle whenever they do that. Yeah, and it's definitely one of those episodes that forces the captain to sort of make a decision on the fly and maybe bend the rules to get out of a disaster or make a bad situation. Where there's no good answer to a bad situation, you just make it less bad. So yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it too. There are other episodes in Trek that I know you have similar mixed feelings on. Mm-hmm. The only thing that makes me hesitate my choice now and wish I could take it back is now that I know it's not as high on your list. I know I probably could have gone with something else and waited a little bit, maybe gotten that a couple rounds lower.
Yeah,
figuring maybe you wouldn't have gone there. Which, that's going to be one of the tricks to the trade here. Is it's going to be the better I know you and the better you know me and our tastes, the more you kind of navigate the draft board and let some things slide and maybe get them later because I'm not going to pick it or you're not going to pick it, and go with something that is a little bit more in your wheelhouse. So I'm staring at an episode right now that I probably should have taken because it's something that maybe I think you might do at some point here. So yeah, but that's the way it rolls. Round four.
I'm gonna go episode 19. I don't know if that was the one you predicted, but I actually like this episode. I don't know if we talked about it. If we talked about it in Trek After Dark or what, but I like some of the comedy stuff in this. It's nice to get off the ship for a little bit, and yeah, I think it's a good time.
Hey, if you're looking, it's certainly looking at your episodes, you have Yesterday's Enterprise and The Offspring and Booby Trap. Captain's Holiday is a very different animal. You want some light variety and some Rob says Team Darren, so he must not be a fan, but. Yeah, it gives you a little extra variety to your pack of episodes.
Yep.
Which is key, I guess, if these are going to be the 10 you live with for a while.
Yeah, you gotta have some variety.
You gotta have some variety, something lighter, a little more fun. So I'm going to go with, for my round 4 selection. I'm torn between 2, maybe even 3. Season 3 is so good. There's so many on here. There's actually quite a few that I could see myself going with. But I'll go with Sarek. Okay. I like it's got some of my favorite Patrick Stewart flexing stuff in it at the end when he mind melds with Sarek and is dealing with all of Sarek's emotional turmoil and trauma. I love that scene. When I think of Sarek, I think of them sitting, listening to the concert, the classical music playing, and Sarek, the tear coming down, and Picard seeing it and knowing something ain't right. I love Sarek. I think it's got. I think it's one of the better episodes of the season, and I think there's more to it than just the crew crossover, continuity porn kind of stuff. With it, look at Sarek here. There's more going on there that I think is of value than just the kind of cute. Let's bring a character from TOS into the mix. So yeah, I feel good about that.
Oh,
round 5.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, this. I think now that we're doing this and it's in practice, I think we're approaching the halfway point in season 5 here, or in round 5. The number of episodes that are great that are left would not be the case in other seasons. I think the really tough.
Sure.
Man, I'd love all 3 of these or all 4 of these. There are seasons where I think it's a little less. The picture at this point would be a little different. Rob says he would go with the most toys, which is an interesting choice. It has not been taken yet.
It has not.
On the board still. Are you torn between a big chunk? Like, is there a like?
Yeah, there's like a
three or
few
four, or is it like down to two? Or
with.
Okay.
But I'm trying to play the board a little bit. Like, I don't want to go too early.
Spaggio from Most Toys. You're right, Robbie is a memorable character. Again, like I said, I was saying this earlier. The guest stars in season 3
pretty strong,
are
very strong,
really strong.
Yeah.
Like I remember whenever I do the Trekkie Awards, if I do a new, like try to take a new swath at season 3 of TNG, it's always brutal finding 5, like having to whittle down who are the 5 best guest star performances in the season. It's brutal. There's so many. You could go like almost episode by episode. Every episode's got one that you could, see yourself going with. That's certainly one of them.
I am just gonna try to pick up this run here.
You're gonna pick the price, right?
No, I'm picking Sins of the Father.
Sins of the Father.
Yep. I think just these maybe 3 or 4 episode run. For me, it's pretty strong. So yeah, and I'm a big Klingon fan, so I'm trying to get some variety as well as far as characters go. So it's nice to get some Worf and so.
Okay. Yeah, I can't argue with that. I'm just gonna say I'm gonna go with Deja Q real quick, and the reason for that is because on Trek Ranks the other day, my number 2 choice of best for the best stretches of 5 episodes is that Deja Q through Sins of the Father run. And I can't let you have them all. You got the core of it there, all 3 of them somehow. Yeah. So I got to grab something from that run. So I'm going to go Deja Q. Sins of the Father and Deja Q were both great. That lasted longer than I would have maybe expected. Deja Q gives me a little bit of levity in my run, like you have with Captain's Holiday, a little bit of a lighter take. Sins of the Father, you took the Klingon stuff. That makes perfect sense for you. You're a big Klingon guy. You like Worf a lot. So do I. Mm-hmm. But that feels at home on your roster for sure. But I'm a little jealous that you have Yesterday's Enterprise, The Offspring, and Sins of the Father. That's like the run. That's the trio of episodes, arguably. Like I think you'd be hard pressed to find for my money, I'd be hard pressed to find a run of 3 that's better than that. And you got all 3. Which I don't know how that happens, but that's the beauty of the draft. You know,
exactly.
Like you got to play the board, and it goes in unexpected ways when you alternate like this. And
yep,
it's interesting way to do it. So we are into the second half with round 6. We're each have 5.
Yes.
10 episodes are off the board, so we're into the sort of back end. But there are some great ones sitting there. Still a lot of value.
I'm gonna go episode 20. It's. I just noticed this, but I'm kind of sticking to the middle of the episode here. If Tin Man is still on the board, I'm gonna take him. Like you said, I think kind of talked about this at the top of the show. Great guest star, fun kind of sci-fi concept with some some competition between some different species, which was fun. To see, so I'll take Tin Man.
Yeah, Tin Man. I just watched. I obviously can't blame me. I really like Tin Man a lot. Like I said earlier, in this episode, I love the balance of the action adventure and the character drama going on there. I think it really walks that line pretty well, being able to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah.
Love the score. I picked that for my MVP. There's some really big, like bombastic music from Jay Shadoway, who becomes one of the rotational, like every other episode composers all the way through Enterprise, Voyager, DS9. His fingerprints are all over Rick Berman's Star Trek, but this is his first score, and it's very different than anything you've heard to that point in the show. He really puts a stamp on the episode. So yeah, Tin Man is a cool choice. Can't blame you. I'm gonna go 2. They're staring me in the face. There's actually 3. So the question is, which one are you least likely to pick? I'm gonna go. I'll go with Hollow Pursuits.
Okay. That was my next pick. But...
That was your next one?
Yeah.
Good, I'm glad. Burn you for once. Yeah, so Barkley, obviously, I've always been a huge fan of Hollow Pursuits. I think it's a really cool look at a more realistic sort of problem that I think would be there for people. You know, the hollow addiction, the inability to kind of pull away from that fantasy world that I think we all even have now. Like, but it would be that much easier to get like sucked into, you know, avoiding reality when you have something like the holodeck at your disposal. You know, we have, depending on who you are, you have video games, you have movies, you have any number of things. The internet, just more broadly, ways to kind of escape reality and be a different version of yourself. And the Hollow Pursuits, you know, years before, you know, many of those things were even an option to do that, was kind of on the ball and looking at this as a struggle that could be coming. So I think Hollow Pursuits is years ahead of its time, and with what it's talking about, and I think it gives TNG a really cool everyman kind of look. You know, these characters are usually so buttoned up and like making good choices, and you know, the best of the best. And Barkley's a guy who struggles with the most basic social things, kind of like a lot of us do. So I think it adds a lot of relatability to the show, and I think it's a great one. And I'm surprised it's here. Surprised to get it in round 6.
Yeah, that's true. I'm gonna go with the Vengeance Factor.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah, let me do this.
Interesting.
I'm trying to get some variety here. So there's a lot in the middle of the board, so I'm trying to get maybe some stuff earlier in the season. Maybe not necessarily a good episode, maybe a middle of the road episode, at least for me. But
some Riker stuff.
Some Riker stuff.
You don't have a whole lot of Riker in your pool.
But I also think that the episode like gives the crew a lot to do as well. So some Riker stuff is always good.
There you go. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean, interesting. As much as I know you love Riker, it makes sense because there's not a lot of Riker in your episodes. I'm looking at your board, your roster, and there's really not a whole lot of Riker to be had in the episodes you've taken so far. So, at least if these are going to be your 10 episodes on a desert island,
gotta have everyone.
You gotta have representation.
Good, bad, and ugly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go with the Enemy from the early part of the season, which I think kind of goes well with the Defector, from which I also have
episodes
sort of tied in together. There's even some continuity between the two, with Tomalak being an adversary for Picard.
Yep.
Some reference to some things that happened in the Enemy, in the Defector. So yeah, I like. That's another one. We talked about it when we were doing rewatch recaps. I love the sort of all angles of that episode. I feel like the I think when I think of the Enemy, the easiest thing to kind of pop into mind is Geordi on the planet with the Romulan, sort of trying to survive and work together. But the Worf stuff, does he save the Romulan on the ship, like on the Enterprise, or not?
Yeah.
And Picard dealing the diplomacy with the Romulan admiral. I think all corners of it work, and all corners of it have unique, different kinds of tones. So it's a versatile episode. again, really happy to be getting it in the 6th round. I feel good about that kind of value. So yeah, that's a happy choice for me.
Yep.
Actually, it's the 7th round.
7th round.
We're in the 7th round.
Yep.
So we're getting down to the nitty gritty. We just got 3 choices left. 6 episodes left are going to be picked. And we'll have 6. There's 12 on the board right now, I believe. 6 are going to get taken. 6 are going to be left. 11.
I'm taking the most toys.
Most toys.
Yeah. Rob said it. It's a very memorable episode as far as guest stars goes. I think it's kind of a fun sci-fi concept. It's kind of fun and silly, a little bit lighter. So, yeah.
Got a killer ending too. I always love the ending of that one.
Yeah.
Where does he pull the trigger? Or did he not? You know that. Well, he did. I think pretty well
he did.
Confirmed that he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. The most toys is a great one. Rob talked about it. He had it very high on his board. He would have taken it early, and I think that's demonstrative of the good value you just got in round 8.
Yes.
So yeah, I will go with like Rob says. Plus the whole data ethics thing at the end is really meaty to chew on. I will go with I'm going to go with the Survivors. I've talked about that one a lot. That's one that I kind of felt comfortable letting slide. It's actually one of my favorites from the season. But for some reason, I felt pretty comfortable that it would last. It's very heavy. It's very dialogue driven.
It's like
love the guest stars.
2 people left, or 3, or
2, yeah. The old couple on the planet. The only 2 people to survive that disaster, and
that little
what the heck is going on there. Patch of green on the planet. There's some really cool mystery stuff going on there. I love the ending of it. I love the almost like Twilight Zone kind of twist at the end with how it all played out and who he is and what he did, and he wiped out all the Husnak everywhere. I love that the dialogue in that. Picard having to let him go because no punishment fits his crime. It's great. It's a great science fiction episode. But I think it flies under the radar a little bit. I think because it's in such a loaded season, right before Who Watches the Watchers and like The Enemy, there's so many big episodes that are really, really, I think more cited as classics kind of surrounding it. So it flies under the radar a little bit, but it's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, so 2 picks left.
2 picks left. We're in round 9. We got to make them count.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go Transfigurations.
Okay. I had my eye on that one.
Okay.
Actually, I really like Transfigurations.
There's some like Geordi stuff, which can be hit and miss. But there's also some good Crusher in it as well. Here, let me update the board real fast. I know it kind of goes against me trying to get an even spread, but I just couldn't leave it on the board. I had my eye on it for a few rounds, but I wanted to see how far I could let it slide before I jumped on it. So
yeah, it's a good one. I think it's another one that kind of flies under the radar a little bit. I think it's really good for Crusher. I think it's one of her better episodes, and it's also like you said, it's got some good Geordi stuff in it.
Yeah.
I like Transfigurations. I feel like it's a little bit of a not necessarily controversial, but I don't see it cited a lot as a favorite. But I think that's the interesting thing about doing this. I think once you get through a certain portion of the draft board, you're into the middle board. You're into the middle meat of the season, and it comes down to your personal preference with like episodes that there might not be a whole lot of separation between. Like they're all kind of in the same pool. Like which ones, given what you already have and what. There's so many different ways to think about it. I will go with. When I had 2 left, I'll go with the Hunted. I've had a mixed history with the Hunted. I used to not be as big on it. I like it more these days. than maybe I did when I was younger. A lot of cool action in it. Another good guest star, good guest character, cool social commentary about, what do you do with veterans and, people who are, dealing with post-traumatic stress and, aren't acclimated to civilian life anymore. I'm pretty into The Hunted right now.
Gotcha.
So it's something I watched fairly recently, and I really enjoyed the last time. There are other episodes that are kind of in a similar boat, like I said, that I think there's not a whole lot of separation between. But of what's left, I think the one that I can honestly say I've enjoyed the most recently is The Hunted.
Okay. I think I'm going to take Evolution, which is the first episode of the season.
Okay.
Let's see. It's definitely getting tough for me, at least down here.
Sure.
I like. Whoops. Yeah, that's right. I like you guys know that I'm kind of more engineering, technobabble, kind of heavy guy. So there's definitely some of that in here, but there's some good sciencey stuff as well. So yeah, I'm going with Evolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Evolution's I think it's a good one. There's some cool, like you said, technobabble stuff, some cool engineering kinds of stuff, cool dilemma, good guest star. Again, it goes to show all these episodes have good guest star. It's kind of repetitive at this point.
Yeah.
But the guy who loves baseball and kind of a tough guy to like.
Yeah.
He's kind of arrogant and full of himself. But I think the show does a good job of making him real, and likable is not always the answer. It's kind of the easy way to go. Make somebody likable, make them complicated, and interesting, and I think Evolution does that. But it's sort of big guest star. The last one, there are a couple here that I like, and what is surprising to me, as I'm kind of looking at it as kind of get ready to make my last choice, is the pool of episodes that's going to be left is not necessarily going to be what I expected. There are some weaker episodes that I kind of knew neither one of us would probably pick, but there are episodes that no matter what happens here, I'm going to be kind of surprised that you take 10 and they're left. Take 20 and they're left between the two of us. Rob would have picked The Price. Ties to Voyager and the continuity stuff.
That's true.
I am not going to choose The Price, but I respect your opinion, Rob. I'm going to go in a different direction. I guess looking at what I have here, kinds of episodes, I'm torn between two, and I'm going to go with The Bonding. It's a little heavy. It's very character heavy, dramatic. It's not one of my favorites, but none of them are. I wouldn't say but I always like particularly the first half of The Bonding. I think the exploration of what actually goes on behind the scenes when a red shirt dies, basically. Like there's a human cost to that crewman who goes on an away mission and gets something blown up in their face and they're gone. Like it's not just a matter of that's it. And I like the exploration of that. I like that it capitalizes on the idea that the show had from the beginning of having families on the ship, and that this is a more complicated thing than the original Enterprise. Somebody dies, there might be other people on the ship who are tied to that person. I like the fact that into season 3 they finally start really playing with that idea. I'm not quite as into when it goes into the alien of the week kind of coming on doing a thing and being that I'm less into, but I like the human stuff in it enough to
it has things and it explores things that I think it makes it this is one of the close ones, at least for me too, because it also it adds to that space is dangerous, and there's because I think maybe in past series or a little earlier in the show, some of these are a little bit. Some people are expendable. There's not a lot of reaction, and I think this feels like something big. When something big happens, like a death, jeez, there's repercussions, and you can feel the effects, not just no one bats an eyelash. So, yeah, I think it's a great pick.
yeah, there's that great scene in it. My favorite scene in it probably is actually involving Data and Riker, who really aren't involved in the episode much, but they're in 10 forward. And Data has a conversation with Riker about how people are coping with it and how they're dealing with it, and like what the difference for Riker it is between like losing Tasha and losing this character. He obviously worked with Tasha more closely, and that was a different thing. But he knew this woman. He had some experiences with her. He was around her for things, and talking about the way different kinds of deaths, affect us differently, is kind of mature stuff. And it's Ron Moore's first script for Star Trek, which is kind of a historically important thing given how prevalent he was for so long with TNG and DS9 and movies. Battlestar Galactica, like it's a big credit to have point out that it's his first televised script. Rob loves when Picard comforts Jeremy. I love the use of Wesley. In that episode, they actually find it kind of an interesting way to like wrap his backstory into the story and giving him something interesting to do. He's got a great scene with Dr. Crusher, Wesley, and his mother. So yeah, I feel good about it. Now, we're talking a lot about the last pick of the batch, but I was torn between that and the Ensigns of Command and even the High Ground a little bit, but I feel good about the bonding the more I'm talking about it. So that's it as far as our draft choices. We each have 10 episodes at our disposal, and there are 6 that are left unchosen. Do we want to talk about what's left on the board and maybe what, like, if we had an 11th round, what would you do? Like, what's the best episode of the Bash?
Yeah, I would probably go with the High Ground. If I had another 11th pick, just because it is kind of another war story a little bit. I like there's some cool production designs stuff in that. Uniforms are cool. Some Crusher stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's that would have been my next pick probably.
High Ground. Yeah, I may have gone there. I would have been between that and the Ensigns of Command. The Ensigns of Command is one that I don't like. High Ground and Ensigns of Command. I'm surprised. I wouldn't have guessed if I would have just taken like one shot at like what's left of this. Like what are the 6 that are left? I don't know that I would have picked those 2. But hey, that's the interesting thing about this. I think if we did it again, it might look different because what's honestly like staring me in the face as I'm looking at this board is that you had yesterday's Enterprise, The Offspring, and Sense of
the run.
Like, I don't know how I let that happen.
Almost the run of the show.
I know. You have all 3 of them.
Yeah,
that's killer. That's sticking in my craw a little bit. So if I had to do over, if we were doing this again, I might throw a wrench in that by
taking one,
claiming something from out of that, and who knows what the fallout would be. And that's the beauty of this. Like one different pick in the second or third round, and there's like there's a chain reaction that this whole thing plays out differently. So, it's really cool, really interesting way to look at it. And I'm interested in the 6 episodes that are left. I think that's curious. It says something about what episodes I think draw us in. The least surprising of the episodes left, I think, are Menage a Troi and The Price. I had a pretty good feel that they would probably go undrafted. Just knowing you, I know that. Yeah, particularly with The Price, I know that's not one that you love, so I felt good about that one kind of slipping through. Matter of perspective, I had a pretty good feel it would probably slip through. Allegiance is a little surprising. Sure, what would happen there, but yeah, I'm impressed with how it went. I think I'm happy with it.
I think I'm happy with my pick. Just looking at this season as a whole, I think there's just such a consistency that it's kind of sets it apart from any other season, I think. Which is amazing. But yeah, I'm very happy with my picks. I think I got a good variety. I will put, that's the word I'll use, of episodes, I think, which would make my stay on the desert island manageable. So
there you go. Yeah, and like I'm just looking at your list, which we'll recap in a second. We have a board here. I had a little thing I was doing to like track the rounds and all too, sitting right next to me. Your group of episodes is definitely diverse in terms of like which characters are focused on. You have a good mix. You have some Geordi, you have some Riker, you have Worf, A lot of good Picard stuff, Data. Like there's Crusher, so it's yours is diverse in terms of characters the episodes are leaning into, which is cool.
Yeah, I think I don't know, just looking back at it, the Vengeance Factor was maybe a bust pick. Maybe I go Allegiance or the High Ground. That's the beauty of this, though. It's like
it's you gotta go with your gut.
You got to, yep.
Absolutely, and that's what makes it fun. I'm glad you picked the Vengeance Factor because it's not something I would have guessed.
Yeah,
it's not something that other people might have done. Like somebody out there might have besides you, but it was an interesting curveball that I didn't see coming.
Captain's Holiday so early.
And you took Captain's Holiday early, which I was not going to do. If for me personally, if I was just picking 20 episodes, Captain's Holiday would have been the sixth. That would have been the sixth.
Okay, yeah.
I wouldn't have done it. That's definitely towards the bottom of my set. But that's why it's a draft. I mean, it's not my list. It's both of us, and it's not a matter of just a ranking of the episodes. It puts a different hat on that idea of looking at which episodes we love. And which ones maybe we don't as much. So, yeah, I think it was successful. Like I said, I think if we did a different kind of season, it would play out even differently. I think that last 3 or 4 rounds, I think was, full of episodes that I think liked, but were like not separated by much. And I think what we would find in some different seasons is the same sort of thing, but maybe the quality of the episodes and how strongly we feel about the episodes might not be quite as high. It might be more like middle of the road episodes that there's not a lot of separation between. So that would be a whole different kind of challenge.
I think it's,
as opposed to I like all of these. Which one do I throw the dart at and get? As opposed to, maybe having to be a little bit more strategic because we don't like the episodes as much.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to be, as we get into seasons that aren't as strong or aren't as consistent, I think it's going to be even more challenging. If this was already challenging enough, this probably arguably the most consistent season of Trek all time, I think that it's just going to be even more challenging and tough to get through, just because it's going to be tough because not all episodes are going to be as this consistently good. So I think this is a good starting season, right? It's a
it was a good dry run and try it and see how it goes. The other thing that would really change it up is, if it's just you and I, we know each other pretty well at this point. Like there are episodes that I feel like I said at the very beginning, I wasn't sure which way you would go as it got going, but the more it was rolling, I could kind of pinpoint episodes. I know he's not going to pick that. I know he's not going to pick that. He might pick this one.
Yeah.
But if you bring other people into the equation, and instead of it just being you and I, maybe there's 4 of us, or 3 of us, and maybe that other person or one of those other people, you have no idea what they're going to do. It really throws a wrench in, how you're gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
So there's any number of ways you could go with this. It's a versatile approach to looking at episodes and seasons, and should be fun to explore as we keep going. Do we want to recap real quick? I have.
We can recap. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to read mine or read?
Read yours. I have my picks. Yeah.
You have yours?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the first round, I took The Best of Both Worlds Part 1, The Defector second, Who Watches the Watchers third, Sarek fourth, Deja Q fifth, Hollow Pursuits sixth, The Enemy seventh, The Survivors eighth, Hunted ninth, and The Bonding 10th.
That's a good list. That's a good list. That's good. This good picks. My first pick, I went with Yesterday's Enterprise, The Offspring second, Booby Trap third, Captain's Holiday 4, Sins of the Father 5, Tin Man 6, The Vengeance Factor 7, The Most Toys 8, Transfigurations 9, and Evolution 10. In what world does Captain's Holiday live above Sins of the Father? I don't know. That's the beauty of this topic, right? In what list does that happen? This is awesome.
In this list,
yes.
It happened.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yep.
And real quick, I'll do this real quick just to sum it up. The 6 episodes that were not chosen were The Ensigns of Command, The Price, The High Ground, A Matter of Perspective, Allegiance, and Menage a Troi.
Mm-hmm.
So they were the unchosen, undrafted free agents that we could, they're left for taking at the end.
So I think I'm gonna post these the graphics on Twitter so you guys can make your guys' choices. I'd love to hear from you guys. What were your drafts? What did we draft wrong? High, low.
Who's got the better team?
Yeah. So if you're watching this after the fact, go over to Twitter. All the information will be there. Yeah, I think there's only one kind of Trek content that I probably like to mention, which is the new Voyager podcast, which I haven't subscribed to, but I definitely will.
Yeah, I have. I listened.
Flyers.
I actually Delta Flyers, hosted by Garrett Wang and Robert Duncan McNeil.
Yeah.
Can't recommend it highly enough. I actually, when I took the time to really look into what they were doing and how it was working, I actually became a patron for them because as a patron, you get the YouTube feed of it. You get to watch them do it. There's extra content. If you're a patron, if you're not a patron, I'll say this. Correct me if I'm wrong if you're out there listening, and maybe I have the details wrong, but the way I understand it is if you're not a patron, you can subscribe to the podcast audio, and you get their recap of the episode talking about it. If you are a patron and you get the YouTube version of it, at the beginning you get their pre-rewatch remembrances, like what they think they remember about it, what their impressions of it are without having watched it. There's a little clip of Robert Duncan McNeil actually watching the episode, talking about it as he's watching it. And they pick winners and losers at the end of the episode. Kind of like I do on Twitter with an MVP kind of thing. It's really, really good. So I would recommend, if you can swing it, if you have the resources to do it, become a patron, support them, get that extra content. It's really good stuff. The way I would kind of describe it is they obviously have really good chemistry. They've known each other forever. They're friends. Robert Duncan McNeil approaches it more as somebody who doesn't know it as a fan as much, but remembers some things more distantly. And he, as somebody who's a director now, has a real eye for that side of things, the production of it, the direction of the episodes. The more nitty gritty things. He doesn't remember the details quite as much. Garrett Wang does. Garrett Wang knows the show. He's more of a fan. He remembers the dynamics of the show and the plot, and he's more like us watching it and has that kind of recall.
I think it's a perfect.
So it's an interesting kind of mix. Yeah. It's a good combination.
Yeah.
Garrett Wang's approaching it more like a fan. Robert Duncan McNeil's approaching it more as a director, somebody with the production chops. On that side of things. So I can't recommend it highly enough. I could not tell you how much I loved watching it on YouTube. So check it out if you haven't.
The reason why I haven't checked it out and subscribed and done all these things, you guys know I'm a big Voyager guy. I say that every episode, but it would suck me back in, and I'm trying to stay in Deep Space Nine land. I could get lost in Voyager again. I'm just trying to save it. Yeah.
You would too.
Yeah. So
it's tempting. It makes it really tempting to want to watch it. The only thing I would say is, maybe you can. I know, they're going one episode a week. What the hell? Follow along, watch one episode of Voyager a week. Gives you a little taste of it. Mix it in with some Deep Space Nine. You could do that.
Goes against all my rules.
I know it does. It goes against my rules too. Yeah. It's not how I tend to rewatch But I'm telling you, you will love the show. It's really, really, really good.
Maybe I'll just start with the first episode.
That's
just how it starts, though, right? I'll just do one episode, just the first one, just to taste it, and then I'll be done. Now, then you're season 4, and you're like, what happened? So
I
know. I think that's been it. We're kind of over that hour mark. I'm gonna wrap it up here. You guys know the drill. The discussion doesn't have to stop here. Stay here on Twitter and keep the discussion going. Facebook, YouTube will be posted later on during the week, so you guys can rewatch it if you missed anything. I will repost the graphics as well, so you can have a nice little list, and I'll post Bill and I's list as well, and I'm sure Bill will as well, but I'm saying as well a lot. Okay. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody. Happy Mother's Day.